Sonny Rollins, jazz tenor saxophonist. Walter Theodore Sonny Rollins, born September 7, 1930, is an American jazz tenor saxophonist who is widely recognized as one of the most important and influential jazz musicians. In a 7-decade career, he has recorded over 60 albums as a leader. A number of his compositions, including St. Thomas, Oleo, Doxy, Pent-Up House, and Air Again, have become jazz standards. Rollins has been called the greatest living improviser and the saxophone colossus. Early life. Rollins was born in New York City to parents from the United States Virgin Islands. The youngest of 3 siblings, he grew up in central Harlem and on Sugar Hill, receiving his first alto saxophone at the age of 7 or 8. He attended Edward W. Stitt Junior High School and graduated from Benjamin Franklin High School in East Harlem. Rollins started as a pianist, changed to alto saxophone, and finally switched to tenor in 1946. During his high school years, he played in a band with other future jazz legends Jackie McLean, Kenny Drew, and Art Taylor. Later life and career. After graduating from high school in 1948, Rollins began performing professionally. He made his first recordings in early 1949 as a sideman with the bebop singer Babs Gonzalez. Trombonist J.J. Johnson was the arranger of the group. Within the next few months, he began to make a name for himself, recording with Johnson and appearing under the leadership of pianist Bud Powell, alongside trumpeter Fats Navarro and drummer Roy Haynes, on a seminal hard bop session. In early 1950, Rollins was arrested for armed robbery and spent 10 months in Rikers Island jail before being released on parole. In 1952, he was rearrested for violating the terms of his parole by using heroin. Between 1951 and 1953, he recorded with Miles Davis, the Modern Jazz Quartet, Charlie Parker, and Thelonious Monk. A breakthrough arrived in 1954 when he recorded his famous compositions Oleo, Air Again, and Doxy with a quintet led by Davis that also featured pianist Horace Silver, these recordings appearing on the album Bag's Groove. In 1955, Rollins entered the Federal Medical Center, Lexington, at the time the only assistance in the U.S. for drug addicts. While there, he volunteered for then experimental methadone therapy and was able to break his heroin habit, after which he lived for a time in Chicago, briefly rooming with the trumpeter Booker Little. Rollins initially feared sobriety would impair his musicianship, but then went on to greater success. Rollins briefly joined the Miles Davis Quintet in the summer of 1955. Later that year, he joined the Clifford Brown-Max Roach Quintet. Studio albums documenting his time in the band are Clifford Brown and Max Roach at Basin Street and Sonny Rollins +4. After the deaths of Brown and the band's pianist, Richie Powell, in a June 1956 automobile accident, Rollins continued playing with Roach and began releasing albums under his own name on Prestige Records, Blue Note, Riverside, and the Los Angeles label Contemporary. His widely acclaimed album Saxophone Colossus was recorded on June 22, 1956, at Rudy Van Gelder's studio in New Jersey, with Tommy Flanagan on piano, former Jazz Messengers bassist Doug Watkins, and his favorite drummer, Roach. This was Rollins's 6th recording as a leader, and it included his best-known composition St. Thomas, a Caribbean calypso based on Hold Him Joe, a tune sung to him by his mother in his childhood, as well as the fast bebop number Strode Road, and Moretot, the Kurt Will composition also known as Mac the Knife. A long blues solo on Saxophone Colossus, Blues 7, was analyzed in depth by the composer and critic Gunther Schuller in a 1958 article. In the solo for St. Thomas, Rollins uses repetition of a rhythmic pattern, and variations of that pattern, covering only a few tones in a tight range, and employing staccato and semi-detached notes. This is interrupted by a sudden flourish, utilizing a much wider range before returning to the former pattern. Listen to the music sample. In his book The Jazz Style of Sonny Rollins, David N. Baker explains that Rollins very often uses rhythm for its own sake. He will sometimes improvise on a rhythmic pattern instead of on the melody or changes. Ever since recording St. Thomas, Rollins's use of calypso rhythms has been one of his signature contributions to jazz. He often performs traditional Caribbean tunes such as Hold 'Em Joe and Don't Stop the Carnival, and he has written many original calypso-influenced compositions, such as Duke of Iron, The Everywhere Calypso, and Global Warming.